be able to, I'd like to be able to share the recording with the people who were not able to join us. So over here, I have this teacher, Carmen Rivera, and I'm actually going to make her big for a second. And let's go ahead and explore some labs. So I highly recommend starting off with the tutorials, either the basic tutorials or the advanced tutorials. And what you could do with these is the first one is a true assessment. So Rex the tutor does not pop up in the first tutorials, whether you choose the basic or the advanced. He does not pop up and help students at all. It's a true assessment. So that's really good because it's a true assessment. The one bad thing is that Rex will let them create an untestable hypothesis. And so what I try to do is just walk my students through that. So I'm actually going to go ahead and assign this one. And if I wanted to, I could actually publish it, but I'm not going to. I'm just going to assign it right here. And then what I'm going to do is go ahead and this, if I wanted to, I could just push it straight out to Google Classroom, or I can also go ahead. Oh, let's grab the shareable link. Okay, copy that shareable link. And then I'm going to actually go over here and push this to my students. And if my students have never created an account, what I want to tell them is to create a new account. And they're going to confirm that, yes, I'm their teacher. And if they have a Google account, it's super easy. They sign in with Google and they're in 2 seconds later. Now, I'm going to actually do this because I want to use an existing, I think I have, I think I remember. I'm in Firefox. Oh man, dang it. I had forgotten. I have to go back. Let me just go through the process of creating a new student account. I will need an account. I'll create a student account. That'll be faster. I thought I remembered. Okay, make a new account. Yes, that's my teacher. Sign in with a username. Okay, so then she's going to get straight in. And it tells her, remember your password and your username. We tell the students to write them down, but if they have Google accounts and they just sign in with Google, it's 10,000 times easier. So I'm in Firefox as a student because if you have a teacher account, and let's say you're in Chrome for your teacher account, if you try to access a student account, the computer is going to get all messed up, right? Because our system has identified you as a teacher. So if you want to have a pretend student account, you have to go ahead and go over here to Firefox. So I'm going to go, and actually let me make this back to 100% because this looks a little bit weird. Okay. Go ahead and go. So this only exists for tutorials. What this is a welcome that kind of walks them through the phases. So what I did is actually walked my students through this, like this is your goal. And then you need to create a hypothesis. And then you're going to change variables and get your results. Then you have a claim. You collect evidence that supports your claim. And then you type it all up in claim, evidence, reasoning, writing. And your writing will be automatically scored. So you want to make sure that you do a good job. And I provide a rubric for students. So hopefully they can do a good job of that. And then I would walk them through the introduction to RAMP and how to do this. In some cases, with if I had a class with a lot of IEPs and ELD kiddos, I would even walk them through this part of it and like determine how the height of the tower affects the total distance traveled from the end of the ramp. So asking my students, what is it we're going to change? Well, what we're going to change is the height of the tower. What do you want to do to it? And then for some of my kiddos, I would actually have them write this out, like increase or decrease, like which do you want to do? Big green arrow up or, big red arrow down. And so having them write out what they think is going to happen, and then what do we think is what's going to change is the total distance traveled, and what do you think is going to happen? And once they've actually written it out, then even my kiddos who were double IEP ELD were able to get it, what they thought was going to happen. Let's say, I think it's, and then I come here, and this is the part they really love, right? Is being able to just like play around. And if you have Rex turned on in an activity, Rex won't let them play around too much because Rex is there to help them. He's their little tutor or coach. But if they are doing this without Rex, like in tutorial 1 has no Rex, then they'll just be able to move forward. And then they come here, and if I increase the height of my tower, interesting. Can you still hear me, Alex? Am I there?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, good. Okay, then the total distance traveled, then increased this. I'm going to say supports my hypothesis. It doesn't, right? Because I said it wasn't going to change. But students never want to say that. And so this is where I would really point out to my students that this part can change and they can still get 100% on the lab. Like they don't have to be correct from the beginning. They can say does not support my hypothesis and still get 100% on this lab. And so that's something that they want to be right from the beginning. They never want to say it didn't support my hypothesis, but they can still get 100%. And then they come here and they type up their claim, evidence, reasoning rubric. And then, assuming they actually finished, I want to show you what students see. So students actually see scores. And then if I had finished claim, evidence, reasoning, I would see my score there. And then they can see their work. And what I had my students do is print this to a PDF and then attach it in Google Classroom, and then they could mark done. And then sometimes I would have them actually graph their information as well, whether that's by hand or Desmos or Excel, but sometimes I would have them graph their information as well. So they'd attach this as a PDF to Google Classroom, sometimes the graph. And then I want to show you, as a teacher, what I would also attach in Google Classroom is I would attach the first thing that the students care about, this claim, evidence, reasoning rubric is really, really helpful when they go to actually type up their claim, evidence, reasoning. Hopefully very, very soon we'll have where this will automatically pop up for students in our system, but it isn't right now. And so it's important to, make sure they have access to the rubric. And then this part they didn't seem to care about until they saw their scores. And if they saw some orange stars, which I did perfectly, I was a terrible example because I did it really well. But if they saw a bunch of orange stars, then they would be like, oh my goodness. And then they care about this rubric. And I would attach this rubric and give my students a chance to say, in my hypothesis, I only got 1 orange star. The reason for that was, da 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 da. And what I would do to improve is, and then I would let them refer to the rubric and write what they would do to improve. And honestly, I feel like their best learning happened at that point where they really reflected on how they did. And then, okay, so that is how I would have students turn in their work. And then what happens is that I can see how they did, like immediately. I can see as soon as they finish hypothesis, the score populates. So, if I had 30 kids in this class, I would have those scores here and all of that information would show here. And so I would be able to see how my students are doing. And then this is that PDF that I showed you from the student perspective. And then I could also download an Excel. Like if I had all 30 students, I could download an Excel and see all of their work there. And then, so I can view by assignment, I can view by class, or I could view individual student progress here. And then if I go back to my assigned labs. The next time, so I would want to assign a tutorial, see how my kiddos did. Maybe I would need to assign a second or the third tutorial. Those should take each about 15 to 20 minutes. They make a good entry task. And then once I feel like, okay, my kiddos are ready to handle a topic lab, then I could hop into something that's a good starter for the year. Like maybe I want to assign density or phase change, like something that's a really good, okay, let's just get going for the year. Let's say I assign phase change. And so when I assign phase change, I can decide if I want Rex or no Rex. I'm going to turn Rex on because he's a tutor and he helps students to get better faster. He does stop them. So if they're confused and they're making mistakes, he's going to go ahead and stop them. And then I can choose whether I want to include the multiple choice pre and post test or I don't. In this case, maybe I'm feeling like I want to have that extra information and practice. And then I could assign it to all my classes. And the first time you do this, it'll actually pull your Google Classes in. And I just recommend shortening the names of those sections because, here, I'll just go ahead and assign a couple of them. What is my computer doing? Let me click. There we go. Okay. That's what I get for not using my mouse, for just using the keypad. Okay. All right. So here we have our first and second period. And if I had a really long name of my class, the entire title of the class is going to show up here. And so that's why I just shortened the title just to make it as short as possible. And then those show up here. I can assign them to Google Classroom, and then I can preview them. And this is a different preview, obviously, than the view we just saw as a student. But here I can see that introduction. I can preview the pre and post test if I would like to. And this is just going to show me that multiple choice. And so what we did is this is standardized test questions, but we have a much better graphic designer. And so we have some nice pictures and students get practice in doing these. And then with our topic labs, like you saw in the tutorial, there's only one lab. But with these when we have phase change or any of those other topics, there are 3 or 4 different labs in the set. They're all around different misconceptions that students have. So what I did is I grouped it. So I would have students complete the introduction, the pretest, and then just the first lab. And then I would tell them like hard stop. And so a lot of times I would create a fake student account just so I could show them like, this is what it looks like and hard stop right here. And then, maybe 2 or 3 days later, I'd have them do the second lab as an introduction. And then I'd tell them hard stop here. And then again, because I didn't want them to do all of this in one day, because, claim, evidence, and reasoning 4 separate times. By the time they get to the end, their responses are gobbledygook because their brains are just fried. And so I wanted them to stop and do the best that they could. And they can see their progress each time. So I would just tell them like, stop, go out and see how you did and reflect on your learning. And then let's try to, we'll come back in a few days and try to improve. So that's how I would do those. And then students, this tab is really, really helpful because you want all of your students to be Google connected. And if any of them don't click that, you'll be able to see that here. And then you can give them their username if they've forgotten. And if you need to, you can change their password. And then we just went over reports. And if you have any really helpful information about reports, it's broken up into different science practices, but also, here, I'll click into it. You can actually see the sub-skills that are necessary in the science practices. And then obviously claim, evidence, reasoning as well would be here with auto scoring if I had actually typed it up. But that tells you how they're doing on those sub-skills. So like some years we focused on the ability to construct claim, and that was our student growth goal, or maybe targeting our independent variable. And we made that our student growth goal. So we were able to see the progress that all of our students were able to make in these difficult skills. And then, oh man, I should have done this. Okay, this is Ink Blotter. This is our alerts notifications. And so if I had opened this up, if I had thought about it, it's, you know, it's only 8:30, so I'm not thinking properly yet. This is like notifications or alerts if students are struggling. And so I can see all of my students here, whether they're active or inactive. But if I just have this open, I could be over in a different tab. I could be grading something entirely different. I could be lesson planning. And if I pop over here, I can see who's struggling. And I could use that if I wanted to get in touch with students. I could use that if a student got in touch with me and said, hey, I don't know what's going on, I'm stuck. I would immediately be able to see what's happening with them and be able to help them. And then it also gives slow progress alerts. So it would tell me if students are struggling, if they're, or let's be honest, if they started the lab and then got distracted on Snapchat, and then I would be able to see slow progress, and it would actually tell me how long they've been there. So I would do screenshots of that, so I'd be able to have that information for when their parents said they were doing that lab for 2 hours. I'm like, well, it's a 15-minute lab, but as you can see here, they were on the same phase for, you know, this number of minutes or whatever. Being able to have that information was helpful. Okay, settings. You can change your email address if you needed to. You can change your sign-in information here. You can connect or disconnect here. And then you can manage your classroom sections here. And then help and resources. Oh my goodness. I am working very, very hard at revamping all of these. It's been a very, very busy spring and summer, but I'm working on revamping this. And hopefully I'll get that done really, really soon. I've redone all of these documents. And so this is help and resources, videos, etc. And we're just working on updating it as soon as we can. But it is good information. We're just trying to get it all updated for distance learning, for the realities that teachers are dealing with now. And I think that is it. So do you have any questions?
Well, first of all, thank you. It was pretty complete overview. You mentioned, you know, like, for example, let's say a parent says, well, you know, my child was on there for 2 hours and so on. Do the reports, or any of the reports set up to be, so that it could be sent to a parent in any way? Or is there like a PDF of it, or?
Yeah, so the reports, if you view individual student progress reports, we just started a new school year, so I don't have much data. But these, you can actually print each page. You can print each student as a separate page. So you can print to PDF, and you would get each of these separated out for each student. So they, like, if I had Sally had like 8 labs in here, you would be able to print that out all separately. The other option would be to, if you're here and you were looking at the lab, you could click on the student's name, and you could always open this up and do a print screen here and grab it. So either way would work.
Okay,
to
great.
grab her information. Yeah. And then you also have that PDF that she has, you have here as well. So same thing. So yeah, obviously Sally's doing just fine, but we know not all of our students do. And usually I try to be a really good student, make some mistakes, but that's what happens when I haven't had a full cup of coffee yet. So yeah, if you assigned a pre or post test, those would actually be here along with a summary. Those summary documents are available on our resources tab, but they go ahead and tell you general information on the lab, and then they tell you the standards that it's aligned to and those different driving questions that are available. And here you can really quickly see the difference between the introduction activity and the advanced activity. They're the same lab. It's just a question of how much scaffolding you want your students to have. So here they have the independent variable and the dependent variable, whereas in the advanced, they only have the dependent variable. So yeah, they're really missing that information, that extra information. So our teachers that have been using it for 4 or 5 years, they enjoy giving some of their students the advanced activities after they've done 4 or 5 labs already that year. If you just give them this off the bat, it's really, really hard. And it's hard for most middle school students. So yeah. Okay. Is there, oh, I think I said this, that dark blue is proficient, light blue is intermediate, and orange is novice. And the one thing is I really, this works pretty well if you're using like a rubric grading scale, but if you use a out of 100 grading scale, our system is pretty hardcore, because you can be proficient down to a 71. And so I would generally give my students a chance to improve their scores rather than just taking them straight across, because 71 is a pretty low score for us to consider proficient. So, yeah.
So a student can read, or you can assign it again, or can they just retake it?
You can assign it again if you wanted to. The other thing is that if they are, if you are assigning all 4 of, like assigning this set, and they are reflecting on it after the first one, then they have a chance to go back in, a few days later, or whenever you assign the second one, they have a chance to show that they've improved in their understanding. And then what I would generally do is like take the last one as their score. And so I would give them a chance to, okay, we're going to do it again. You have a chance to improve. And so I would just take the last one as their score. Rather than an average, I would allow them to show improvement and only take the final score. So, just,
Okay, so when you assign the lab, everything's available. You have to tell them. You can't, in other words, individually assign, let's say, the first of the 4 to the
yeah,
student.
not yet. It was supposed to be done this summer, but what's happened, this might be surprising. No, it's not. We have had an insane amount of activity. And so we've actually had to loop up 3 additional servers. So the developer time that was supposed to be spent making it so that you could assign these separately has instead been spent making sure that we have the server capability to handle the influx of students and teachers. And so, because we don't want everything to crash. And so, so that's what our developer has been doing. And as soon as he's done, this is his next task, is he's going to actually work to where you're going to be able to pick which of these you want to assign, and you'll be able to assign them separately. And I was seriously hoping it would be done in July, but he's just not done with that server work yet. So fingers crossed he's done very, very soon. I don't really understand completely what goes into that. And so I'm just praying he's done soon so he can get started on this project. And it is next. I
Okay.
just wanted it done now.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. But he did make the good point that, like, in the big scheme of things, I would rather have things working and functioning than everything crashing. So he had a point there. So yeah, you will be able very soon to be able to separate these out. So, yeah. And then if you get to this point and you're not happy, you can go ahead and unassign these if you'd like to. And then if you haven't sent them out to students yet, you can unassign them. And then like this was not actually posted to Google Classroom. So you could just go over to Google Classroom, and this is on the Classworks page, and it's in light gray at the top as a draft. So you can make changes there and then publish it from Google Classroom if you'd prefer. And so,
Okay.
yeah.
Thank
Are
you.
there, oh, go ahead.
No, I was saying thank you.
Oh yeah, no problem. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. Otherwise, I've gone over my 30 minutes. So yeah, I don't want to keep you all day.
All right. No, thank you very much. I'm sure I'll have more questions. I'll just check the resources, or I will email the company.
Yeah, just email me. The email just comes to me. So yeah, feel free to email me if you have any questions. I hope you have a great day.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.